Jason, on your copy that Kelly just gave you, first page, open it up for me and tell me what does it say underneath the last grievance thing on the right, on page 3, actually. Revised, approved, what date?
June 12th, 2023.
Okay.
2020.
All right, because I have one here that says April 13th, 2015. And then I have another one here. I just wanted to see what everybody had.
There's a date on the cover as well.
Well, I know that, but okay. All right, very good. Well, we'll go ahead and set the meeting open at 7. I'm assuming this thing's 3 minutes fast.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
about
it
one.
is.
Well, actually, it looks like it's on time for once.
That's a little fast.
It's
I mean, this compared to that.
oh yeah.
You know, this has always been fast compared to that, but they look like they're matching.
That's hysterical.
And I don't know if
They're
Michelle's
both
coming. Has anybody
We're
heard?
both wrong.
I haven't heard anything.
Or Brett.
I haven't heard.
Well, like I said at the last meeting, if you ain't here, you ain't got no say so.
Do we want to get the recorder? I mean, I don't trust
No.
myself to take adequate notes.
The camera's on. If you want
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah, and Kelly can refer to that for writing the name.
It'll be over here as well.
I can grab it if you want. Do you want to?
I did listen
Yeah,
to the
let's just-
meeting,
let's
even
just
though I
make
wasn't
sure.
here, and it sounded actually really good. I could even hear any of it.
Okay. Don't worry about it, Annie.
It probably wouldn't hurt to have it. What the heck?
Redundancy.
I know I have this in here.
So we're pretty much just gonna say that we all agree this is good and move on with life, right?
I got a couple of things I'd like to change, but
Well,
nothing
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, that's the purpose of this, is getting things changed the way you guys want them.
Nothing crazy though. I don't think this is going to be like.
Was somebody coming or somebody leaving just
That
now?
was me with doors.
Okay.
I was trying to. I actually don't know where she puts the recorder.
Okay,
It's
I'm
usually
gonna
waiting for me.
say that we started the meeting at 7 o'clock, and those present are Annie, Jason, Tim, and myself.
Richard's here too.
As far
The
as
public was in full attendance.
the normal people that are here for our public meetings are here tonight as well. These are council members as
I
top.
got it. I got it.
And then so far, and I'm gonna leave it, I'm not gonna put anybody absent until they show up. I mean, until they don't show up or we're not, or until we're done, either one, right? Okay.
Works.
Okay.
Richard, this is a work session, and as far as I'm concerned, anybody that's out here can throw in an opinion or two. I'm not against
Can
that.
I look at a copy of this? For
Sure,
somebody who's
sure.
not going to be here. Thank you.
Can we start with PTO since that's what we're here
You can
for?
start anywhere in the handbook that you want to see some revisions, then let's go with that.
Well, I mean, since we scheduled it for PTO, I'm asking if we can start there just to make sure we check that off our list tonight. But we don't have to.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, you can start wherever you want, and that's fine. That'd be Article 5, I'm gonna guess, right?
4
Article
on page 7.
Article 4 is compensation. I have Article 5 on page 5, attendance and leaves. In the book that says approved, revised, approved June 12th, 2020.
Oh yeah. You're right. I was reading V4 under Article 5.
Okay.
B3 to B4. Because there's vacation as well. I left your papers at home that you brought in. I took all my papers out of my bag this week. Of course, that's what I needed. Clay provided one that's like a complete. I haven't actually read it yet, so I don't know, but it's a PTO policy, like a drop in and go potential change. But it's a PTO plan where I believe everything is PTO, but again, I didn't read it yet.
Whose is this?
Clay put it together. And
Oh,
I'm just in between.
Or at least a field service.
No, that's running.
Did you jiggle the handle?
It's up. It's not down.
See, it's got an old school float in it. So this is intended to completely replace.
Yeah, like it would be a drop in for sick and vacation leave. Everything would become PTO.
Looks pretty similar to what I submitted.
Yeah, and it probably is. I didn't get a chance to compare them side by side.
I think one thing that I'll wait until everyone's done reading. I think I made it clear before, I'm a fan of just PTO and not all these other
No vacation, no sick.
pots. Just one.
Yeah.
It's time it's not that you're not here and you're paid for it. Simple enough. The other thing is it doesn't clearly define what an unscheduled absence is. And to me, it would be without a 24-hour notice, it's unscheduled.
Mhm.
Says 1 hour calling in sick, which is okay if you're sick, but that wasn't scheduled.
I think that's just to clarify that you need to call within the first hour of the
Right.
shift, right? So it's not necessarily to the
To the
definition.
unscheduled.
Yeah.
Well, you have to make it clear so we don't have any misunderstandings.
Right.
Right.
That's why I said for the unscheduled, I would just say 24-hour notice, would call it scheduled.
I disagree with that.
What do you think?
I think if a person came to work at 8 o'clock this morning and, as an example, and said, something's come up, I need to leave at 2 PM and take an hour of vacation or an hour of PTO. And if I don't need him, whoever's in charge of him doesn't need that person, then it's scheduled.
You can't say that, though, because
Why
what if you
can't you?
did? What if you did need him?
If I,
Then now it's unscheduled?
well, if I'm not given a choice in that case. I'm not given a choice. And the only way a person would be denied leave, and something else I'd like to see in here. No, since we only have 3 outside employees, unless we train Robin to do some more work and become a 4th type employee. Since something to think about down the road, if not now. But we can't have more than one person off at a time. And he made a comment earlier this year that they wouldn't do that. There wouldn't be 2 people on vacation at the same time, taking the day off at the same time. But back in August, it happened. The day after we had that big storm on Wednesday night. Mike was gone the next day and Barry was on vacation. But
I
Barry,
believe Mike was on annual as well. They were both already unscheduled. That storm, they were both scheduled, I think.
they were both scheduled off.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We cannot afford to have 2 people off at the same time. And you had made the comment they wouldn't do that. Do you remember that? Making that comment
I
earlier this
don't
summer?
know.
Please don't get upset.
You
We're
can't
just
quote
talking.
me from, I don't know. I can't remember stuff from 10 minutes ago sometimes.
You know,
So
be careful saying that sort of thing too. Really.
So
But my point is
don't
we
quote
can't.
me though. Just make the
I
point.
will quote you because that happened during a meeting, so it would be on camera. So
Okay.
I can quote
So
that.
I guess my thing here is I don't know what I said when I said that or whatever exactly, but I think yes, they do try their best to not all be off at the same time. Obviously, they always leave at least one, but I do think they try not to be off at the same time. I don't know what I said when
Okay.
you're
All right. Well,
referring to.
let's just think about it as a group anyway, right?
Okay.
So-
Can we afford to have 2 people off at the same
I
time?
would say normally
That's
no.
the question. Normally,
I think
no.
a scheduled vacation,
Is different.
if you've got scheduled vacation, nobody else should be scheduling their vacation at the same time. And that's going to be one of those seniority situations. The guy who puts it in first or has the most seniority, however we want to work that, would get preference for the vacation times that, like, 2 guys both want the week of the 4th of July off for whatever reason. Whoever puts it in first or has the most seniority would get preference for that vacation time, but they could work that out between the 2 of them. We would not.
We could establish a policy on that too.
And I think that's a good idea.
I wouldn't mind establishing one that say in October, a vacation book goes around to the employees with the senior person picking out the week or weeks that they want to take off for the following year, starting January 1st. And then that's covered. The senior person in this case would be Mike. Jim would be next. And then at this pace, it'd be Barry.
I don't like the idea of ringing their bell and saying, hey, why don't you think about what you want to do next year so you can essentially screw the other employees over.
Yeah.
The way we do it is if you were wise enough and looking ahead and you put your request in, as he said, if I put mine in before he does, I get the time off. Now, if I put mine in because I just want to sit at home with my family, and then he comes up and he says, hey, and he's got a dire emergency. The roof blew off my house and I need to replace it.
Well, and that's an emergency situation. Right. Let's say your daughter's planning her wedding and you are, my daughter's planning her wedding and you're sitting at home hanging out with family. Mm-hmm. And you and I can talk that out and be like, hey, my daughter's planning her wedding for this date. That's when her husband's family can all get together. Can we swap some vacation days and you just move yours since you're just hanging out at home? And that's something we could work out. But then you would still have the preference on that because you put your vacation in first.
Yes.
And we can establish the policy.
I like the first come, first serve.
And first come, first serve works pretty well. It does keep people from abusing seniority.
Yes. And we have that where I work, and we it's flexible enough that if somebody just wants to be a jerk and they say, hey, I think I heard Tim has tomorrow off, and there's, we're right at the cutoff of how, because obviously we have 25 people in the shop, you can have more than one person off. But if somebody knows that day after Thanksgiving, there's one more slot available, Tim wants it, I'm going to hurry up and take it so he can't get it. Our boss plays that. So.
Employees play that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
They know when the holidays are. They look at the calendar. They see this year it's on Monday or it's on Friday, and they can get a 4-day weekend, or they can get 8 days off in a row and only burning 4 days of sick leave. That sort of thing happens. But I'm not saying that to explain what I'm thinking on that. I'm not saying that they have to max out a year in advance or in October for the following year or November for the following. There's only 3 of them. We could do it in December for the following year as far as that goes. Chances are none we're going to take vacation in January. I don't know if anybody goes skiing in Colorado in January.
There's deer that need to be shot.
Well,
There
maybe
are
so,
deer.
maybe so. But my point is, we know that based on what you've got written in here, how many hours of sick leave, how many hours of PTO people are going to have. You know that, right? And nobody, I can tell you right now, nobody's got 3 weeks off available to them right now. Nobody
That's the other
does.
thing I was going to point out. I don't know. I have no idea how our guys use their vacation. If where I work, you have that guy that never takes a day off, and he accrues as many hours, and then he gets. Then you have the guys that, man, they know to the minute what time they can leave Friday afternoon,
and they take it.
Yes,
they do. Yeah,
So,
I know that. I'm just saying that we don't have that. We don't have that problem where a senior person can hoard every holiday. We don't have that. Memorial Day weekend, July 4th, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. Enough vacation to.
Well, I don't think
or
anybody
PTO.
do that to each other necessarily.
I'd like to think that they work with each other.
I would like to think that too. And
I have
I'm just saying,
it's-
Big
It's
plan
the-
for
it's
things that are going on.
The hazards of having a small crew is if you piss off your buddy, one of these days you're going
It's
to
going
need
to come
something.
around.
It's going to be a short trip before you get bit back.
yeah. And as far as that goes, it's going to take a while before anybody is going to be able to accumulate 3 or 4 weeks of vacation.
Let's reel
Or
this
P-
back
or
in.
PTO, let's put it that way. 208 hours is what we're looking at 8 hours of pay period. Break that down. Would that be 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 40 hours? So it'd be 5 weeks. Huh? 208 hours. So it'd be
208.
208. So 160 would be 2 weeks. I'm sorry. Is that right? No,
It'd be
80.
46 weeks.
160 would
A
be
pay period is 2
would be
weeks
4
for us.
weeks. So 200 is going to be roughly 5 weeks a year of PTO, right? 40 hours a week divided into 200 is 5. You get five. They would only actually, if they took all 5 weeks off, they would carry over 8 hours every year if they were at the max. And everybody starts. If you're going to go with this one,
On this one, that's how it starts.
What's
Ours starts at
ours?
4, and then moved up to 6.5.
well, let me ask you about yours. It starts at 4 for PTO. Does that also?
No, I
include-
mean in here, vacation time. And I
No, I'm talking about this proposal on the proposed one.
this one starts at 8 hours
At
per pay
8.
period, and it's 8 hours per pay period for your first year.
First 10 years.
Yeah, for the first 10 years. For if you're over 10 but under 15, you get 9 hours per pay period,
Right.
and over 15 is 10.5 hours per pay period.
And then,
So it's roughly 26 pay periods in a year.
Well, there is 26 in a pay period. And it paid 26 pay periods per year.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So that's 208 hours PTO at 8 hours.
Yeah.
So, and with that in mind, as soon as they accumulate a year, then they must take 40 hours of PTO per calendar year. So what happens to the rest of it?
It's up to their leisure. But basically, you're mandating that they do take some time off and don't just
Yeah.
bank it all.
Use it or lose it.
So
Well,
The bank
no,
does a similar.
I don't think you want to use it or lose it policy, do you?
No. This one is just mandating that they take 1 week off per year, like take a vacation.
Okay, does it, should you say continuous time off?
That's what it says.
I don't see that.
there was a 9-day mandatory leave.
Employees with more than one full
Consecutive
calendar year,
days.
but less than 5 years shall be required to use at least 40 hours of PTO
It's
per
in
calendar
it.
year.
It's on F.
F. So there's a 9-day
Yeah.
mandatory leave, and it's basically it's forcing you to take a Monday through Friday off and not work the weekends on either side. So they're telling you to take 9 days in a row off,
Including weekends. Okay, so F covers that.
and that would basically wrap that 40 hours of PTO in. So you would be normally scheduled off for the weekend, take your 40 hours of vacation, and then normally scheduled off for the next weekend, which isn't really how our system works for the maintenance guys anyway.
Okay,
Do
so
you like that?
It's weird.
What's weird? Sorry.
okay,
F.
so I want to. I'm
The
playing.
bank does a mandatory week.
I'm playing
Per
devil's
year.
advocate on
Mhm.
this.
I've heard of that.
Well,
When they
and-
take their
and it-
vacation. It has to
That's
be
for
a
the
full.
FDIC rules, right?
Is it?
Not
I
the
don't.
bank.
They must be. I guess I
Is-
didn't realize, but yeah, they have to take a full 5-day vacation each year.
It's for control, so somebody else can catch what maybe you were doing
Oh.
in there.
And
It's you.
And that's what's mentioned in here is it's
Basically, that's
intended
what it
to cross train employees and do
Yeah.
someone else's role for broader knowledge base and to check for what is it fraud it's in here and improve.
It told the reason behind it, and
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I don't know.
It's especially true in the case of the treasurer, for example.
Right.
If the treasurer's skimming money and doesn't take time off for 20 years, and I'm going to mention another town as an example because that's what happened.
Yeah.
That person never took time off in 20 years, and then all of a sudden
There's nobody to.
they take a week or 10 days off because of a family thing going on, and whoever filled in discovered what was going on. And this sort of thing prevents that discovery from happening 20 years later.
Yeah. So it's good for security, for the security of the job. It's good for
cross training.
Cross training. It's good
I
for.
agree.
Okay.
Okay,
I don't
I-
have a problem.
And
with
even the military
that
has a
wording and the
forced
way they do
vacation
that.
time.
Okay, I've
What's
got
your
it.
reason?
I'm playing devil's advocate here because I'm looking at any employee less than 10 years. After 1 year, they're required to use 40 hours. So they get 208 a year. So if they use 40 hours in 1 year, that leaves them with 168. Got me?
Right.
And so the next year they earn another 208.
And they're at 376.
208 would be 376, right?
Yeah.
And they only use 40 hours because that's all they're required to use. That leaves them with 336.
Do we want to cap them for a use or lose, or do we want
I-
to,
I
somebody takes a year of vacation
I don't
at
want
their 20th year?
well, they're going to take the entire year.
Right.
What could it be? That's what I'm saying. What are you going to do with that?
Do we allow them to bank it for 20 years and then, they just we just pay them for their last year?
Okay. I asked Mike about the seniority.
Who'd you ask?
I asked Mike about the seniority versus first come, first serve, how they do it now. He said, no, they haven't had any issues in almost 11 years. Seniority is how it should be. But if a guy is taking a vacation and books 6 months out, a senior can't bump him a week out. So he can't just steal
That's what
it.
they were saying.
Pretty much what we just
So
said.
it's-
So does a first come, first serve.
First come,
But you
first
can't
serve.
just be a jerk about it.
So he likes the idea of seniority, but really the way they work it is first come, first serve.
Mhm.
And I'm a fan of that idea.
And that's how we do it at work. Where let's say you and I put our time in for the day after Thanksgiving. We both put our sheet in today, but you've got a couple years on me.
That's
You
when
get the
it
day
sh-
over,
That's
right?
when it should happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fair bit.
And that kind of rolls into a judgment call. then.
Let's go right back to what started this conversation before we got so sidetracked. Unscheduled leave. I don't think that it's right that we can choose on the day that someone is requesting leave whether or not we're going to count it unscheduled or not. I think we just hammer out a 24-hour thing and call it there. You tell your supervisor who schedules your work the next day, the day in advance if you're going to be there. Because if he planned on us digging up a pipe so he could replace a valve or something, and then you come in that day and say, hey, can I cut out of here at 2:00? Well, that's bullshit. You're going to be the one digging down there.
I think we should still count it as an unscheduled leave, but I don't necessarily think that we should treat that as a negative.
I also think that Tim's missing my
I don't
point.
think, and
If
see,
we don't need the employee who wants that hour, then let him go. If we need the employee, then don't let him go. That's what it boils down to.
Right. Well, I wasn't saying to tell them that they can't take their time.
I don't disagree though. I mean, you could start planning ahead a little bit. Like, oh, tomorrow my daughter's got a thing after school I'd like to go see. Could I check out early?
And then
Earlier
you know,
than my flex
How many of you
hours?
have got small children who have come home and then on the morning they're going to school say, Mom or Dad, I'm supposed to take cookies to school today for some reason. And you're like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me yesterday?
I know you're running
Now-
to the store to buy packaged
No, that's
cookies.
valid.
Or whatever. So
I get it.
So what I'm saying is you don't know tomorrow morning what's happened overnight. Maybe they don't get a phone call till 6 in the morning. They can't give you a 24-hour notice at 6 in the morning if they can't be here for an emergency purpose.
Well, my point wasn't that when they come in the next morning and say, hey, I need to get out of here at 2, you don't tell them, no, you can't go. Yes, you can go, but that mark goes in your file as one of your unscheduled leave. And then later on, when they do your eval, it says, okay, this guy, Tim, he's come in here every damn morning, every Monday morning and said he needs to leave early. His absence or his attendance isn't really the best.
I
So
understand.
that'll reflect on my eval.
And the way you're, yes, it would. But who makes the decision whether it's valid or not?
Your reason to leave? It's irrelevant.
No, it's not.
That way it's
No,
not.
it's not your reason to leave that makes it invalid. It's the need of the employee that makes it invalid or not.
Well, it's not whether or not the employee left at 2. It's whether or not the employee gave the guy who schedules his day a 24-hour notice.
Okay, so tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, or somebody's gonna come to work at 7:30, we'll say, and tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, somebody finds out that they can't be here.
And it wasn't 24-hour notice.
So what is it?
For what it was
What is it?
unscheduled. It wasn't 24 hours in advance.
But we don't necessarily have to treat an unscheduled absence as a negative either.
Unless it becomes a recurring problem.
Unless it becomes a
So you
recurring
keep
problem.
track of them, and
So
if
we need-
somebody is a recurring offender, then you treat
If they're sick every Friday afternoon,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Or every Monday
every
Monday
Monday
morning
morning.
after a Sunday, late Sunday night football game, they don't
Right.
come to work till noon.
Yes, that's a fair way to treat it and still make it.
It's not a negative until they make you make it a negative.
Now, this policy does not have any marks in it.
Right.
So we're not putting marks on anybody. We're just going to pay attention if they do start abusing.
Consider what we would call an unscheduled absence. Later on, we should determine what.
I think the employees need to know what's considered unscheduled or not.
What is-
Instead of just popping in on them and say, oh, by the way, you're unscheduled now for the last.
Well, that's what I
3
say.
weeks.
We should determine, and we can't leave it up to a judgment call each and every time. It needs to be just hammered out in black and white, and there it is. That's my opinion. Andy, what do you think about that?
If we can,
I
if
have
we
a hard
write,
time with.
if we can write it down as a black and white, then it removes any judgments out.
And that's what really caused us to begin with, because it wasn't specified black and white.
And that's
And
Will you let him-
became judgment calls, her opinion, your opinion, my opinion, his and his.
It also
And it all different.
Technically not, just the supervisors.
It also
is in
stops-
this situation at this point.
It also stops the
Right.
supervisor from saying you let him go early one day to go to his kid's ball game. You didn't count it unscheduled, but when I wanted to go to my kid's ball game, you did count it. This would stop all of those arguments.
I guess it depends on how you approached it, though. I mean,
Exactly, Annie, you're exactly right. Depends on how it's approached. I'm not going to stop you if the school calls you and says, oh, your kid went to recess and broke his tooth and you need to take him to the dentist. I'm not going to stop you from taking the time off.
right.
And
No,
I'm not,
you're-
I'm not going to penalize you for it
You
either.
keep saying stop you from taking the time off. I am not saying that. I'm not implying
I
that.
understand you're not implying that. You're implying that no matter what the reason is, they get to go and it don't count against them unless they show a pattern of
Yeah.
continually doing that.
as the
Now-
PTO
Now, who
policy.
decides the pattern?
The 24-hour time frame.
Just the one page.
It will fail. I'm telling you now, it's going
Oh,
to
I'm
fail.
sorry.
It doesn't where I work.
Well, apparently, why isn't it? Why isn't it
If
paid?
you-
Like,
if
because
you
you
go-
got 25 employees and we don't, or what? What's the
We have
difference?
200 employees.
That's even worse.
Yeah, and if one person does it over and over and over, and they get one little mark every time they do it, and then if they have 30 marks based to her 2 marks, his 4 marks, my 7, then the person who had 30 obviously gets a lower score when it comes to their attendance on their eval. That's all it is about, is a way to keep
Well,
your metrics.
Well, I'm just throwing my 2 cents in. You guys are going to make the decision on how you do that. I'm just saying.
No, I don't disagree. This really doesn't say marks though or anything. Like it doesn't track.
That's why I said later on we would have to determine that.
If
Right
we want
here-
to add a system like that.
Right here, all
If
we
you
would have
wanna
to do is
track-
So
define.
this is for
Define
PTO
what an
all
unscheduled-
over.
Yeah, across the board PTO.
Oh.
All
kind
I'm
of
trying to
primary.
do is define what an is.
Well, we're talking about it.
And I agree.
And I'm not.
In
for it.
absence without at least 24 hours notice is an unscheduled absence. But it doesn't have to be a negative thing.
That's what I'm saying.
It's just hey man, I'm sick today. I'm not going to make it. You're off. Okay. If it goes more than 3 days, or if it goes up to 3 days, you're going to need a doctor's note.
Didn't say that.
So that's another thing that we can add in for this. If your absence lasts 3 days or longer, you need to have a doctor's note for it.
I was going to add that also.
And
That was
because
my-
I think fair request, because after 3 days, if you can't get to work, you probably should see a doctor.
What if there's a relative that's died and you're going to her funeral?
And that's not sick time. That's
That's-
bereavement.
We don't have sick time. We have PTO.
No, that
Sorry,
would be
back it
bereavement.
up. That's bereavement leave, and that's
That's a
separate. It
totally
does
different-
say that it's separate from this. So
Yeah.
holiday and funeral leave is not
How
included.
do they get paid for bereavement leave?
I don't know. We actually define bereavement in
I
here.
know we do, but how do they get paid for it? What do they use to get paid?
What
They
you're
use your
talking about.
PTO to get paid for bereavement leave?
No, it's a separate. It's like a bonus day that we give
Yeah,
them.
it's
It's
free
called
day.
funeral leave.
For how many? Up to how many days? 3, isn't it?
No,
It
I don't
is
know. Is it three?
Not
on
to
the-
exceed 3 working days.
It depends on the
defines.
person.
Well, it defines.
So
it.
funeral leave, in the case of the death of an immediate family member, yada yada, it defines family members. The affected employee may be granted funeral leave not to exceed 3 working days. This leave will also include more defined people. So,
We just installed this because I'm the one who presented this.
so now the funeral leave,
Mhm.
we don't.
Yeah.
Does that count against their accrued vacation
No,
time?
this
So
is
that's
not
fine.
a PTO thing.
So
It's
if
a
they need
separate
more
thing.
time than that,
They can take time.
they can take more time than that. Say, hey, my mother died. The funeral is this time frame.
In Singapore.
I'm going to take my 3 days of funeral leave, but I also need to take vacation time along with that. Now it's scheduled because they're giving you at least 24 hours notice,
Mhm.
and they're adding those things together. They're using their own vacation time for part of it. We've given them the 3 days for funeral leave. That's an easy coverage, and it doesn't even have to be a mark on the record.
Yeah, I'm not worried about funeral leave because that's pretty specific here too, especially we know usually.
Other than how they're getting paid for it. That was the only thing that I would have had a problem with if somebody if that had happened in the last 2.5 years.
Well,
Because it's not definitive the way it's written now that they're paid
And that's why I asked that question. That's-
excess of their accrued PTO.
So we just need a statement added onto there that says this leave does not affect the employee's normally accrued PTO.
I thought that was a given, but if we need to put it in black and white, I'm okay with that.
I think that's an easy add.
I don't know of a place that counts bereavement leave against your PTO.
I've never worked anywhere that
I
had
worked
bereavement
for
leave.
35 years for a company that charged you vacation time off your earned accrued sick leave or PTO for funeral.
They don't have bereavement leave.
The military
No.
doesn't.
They have bereavement leave that authorizes you to time off without having it counted against your attendance,
Wow.
but you still have to pay for your own time off.
I didn't know that.
That was a basic and incentive. As my family was getting older, I would purposely hold a week back every year for vacation and not use it for anything because I was expecting my dad to die or my mother or somebody because of age. And so I purposely held weeks back every
to
year
cover that.
to cover that if it had happened.
The military is kind of the same way. They don't. There's no separate vacation times in the
So
military. You
I
get
think that's an individual
leave.
company's decision to make. If you guys want that that it doesn't count against their PTO, that's y'all's prerogative. That's what we're here for.
That's
You
my
guys,
decision.
that's what you,
and I like that idea.
What next?
Well,
well,
we haven't really solved this
Yeah,
unscheduled
yeah.
leave part.
we're bouncing around. It's hard to stick on. It's
The
hard to stick
unscheduled
on
leave
one.
bounces off of so many different things.
Right, so let's just read it again, I guess. An unscheduled an employee's absence may be deemed unscheduled when an employee fails to provide advance notice or exceeds the length of absences as defined by policy or authorized in advance.
So even this says if you fail to provide advance notice. So if we just establish that the advance notice is 24 hours, hey, I know it's short term, but I need to take Monday off because X, Y, or Z, and you tell them on Friday, or you call your supervisor on Saturday, and hey, I've got to take Monday off. You give it 24 hours notice. It's not an unscheduled absence. You're only taking a day. If they can spare you, you're covered. If you call in Monday morning and you're sick, hey man, coming out both ends. I'm not going to make it in today.
We don't need your details.
It's an unscheduled absence, but it's not necessarily negative. You're sick. It happens.
Well, that's what I mean. It can't have a negative connotation if it's for sick as well. I mean, to
Right.
me, it can't be that way. Because it has to accommodate that. Like, I have a problem with the 3-day doctor's note too, because I had the flu literally twice. Was it this year?
Yeah,
And that's a 3-day fever minimum.
and it's easy to get a doctor.
I'm not going to the doctor with the flu.
Yeah, like I've got what in my chart, they'll send me a doctor's note in my chart, and I can email that.
You can
They
just
will email-
ask for it
Yeah.
now.
I mean, a doctor will write you a
Yeah.
sick leave so you can go hunting. I mean, it's that easy to set the system.
Ask Dr.
Yes.
Cat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but it's easy to get the note. I
Is it
called
now?
in.
Because it didn't used to be an in-person thing.
I can pull like 3 sick notes out of my chart right now from 2 different COVIDs and something else.
But did you have to go get tested for COVID?
I did.
That's
So I had to go in and do
that's
the.
what I'm saying.
I had to do the
That's my
drive-through
problem.
test. And
As
then the
as a
second
mom,
one-
especially, I feel like I'm dying. I don't want to go to the doctor.
Right.
So why wouldn't you go to the doctor if you feel like you're dying?
If you have the flu and you know you have the flu, because your 5-year-old tested positive for the exact same thing just a week prior, and then they gave it to you, and then you're down with the flu. Why would you go in? It's a virus. There's no medicine to treat it. It's already in your body. You're actually just being contagious and making others ill. Because if you have a fever, you're very contagious. So to me, that is contradictory to all medical advice.
Right. So
I don't agree with
and
that.
that's why they will send you a doctor's note without having you come in.
And that's
The last 2
Because
times I had
that's-
COVID,
new to me. I didn't know that. I've not had to ask for a doctor's note.
I called in because I knew I was going to be out for several days, and the Ford required me to have a doctor's note for more than 3 days.
Okay.
It might also be worth noting that you do get the flu and you're off for the next 3 days. Your first day was an unscheduled one, but the next 2 days are not unscheduled.
Right.
They know. Oh,
Even
You
in
said-
places that track the mark, they don't count, obviously,
Yeah.
because it's all one instance. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim.
You know, like I said, you guys,
finished my thought. So.
I'm just here to kind of move things along, and you guys decide what you want to do, and I'll throw my 2 cents worth and not argue about it.
Do we have any other questions on this policy that we need to solve? And then we can maybe come back and have prevailing thoughts.
I think after it gets written the way you want it, then we need to look at it and decide if that's the way we really want it, or if it needs to be fine tuned for that. I hate dragging that on, but that's what has to happen.
No, it's not a bad thing. We make sure we did it right, and then we don't have to do this
So
whole
So,
process
so
again.
the next question I got is, so if a person calls in, if a person comes to work and works 2 or 3 hours and takes sick leave the rest of the day, and then the next day comes to work and works 4 or 5 hours, it takes sick leave the rest of the day. How many unscheduled absences does that person have?
Obviously,
That would
that's
be
2.
2.
2.
Yeah.
So has anybody looked at our employees' attendance records over the past, say, 3 months?
No, I can't even get their work logs.
I do know that it was said in this meeting that our employees are always up front. They never take it where there's 2 employees off at once to leave somebody in.
Oh,
the
Terry
lurch.
already quoted me, so you don't have to quote me again.
So that
Thanks.
actually just
Obviously,
happened.
that was a conversation that happened.
Well, I know it happened in August. I don't know if it's happened since, but haven't really paid.
I've never had a conversation with anybody that's.
That's funny because you just did it verbatim.
Well, it just happened and it left Barry Driggs by himself and Tim, who's going to step up if there's an emergency when Barry Driggs isn't trained.
He's not certified in anything, is he?
Mike still
No, he's
answers
not.
all of the emergency calls even when he's off.
But see, that's
Which
the
is another
problem that I
problem we
have
have to
with
solve.
the handbook is it hasn't been being followed. And this right here is just catering to everything that they want because they didn't want to follow it in the first place, which is why I think it's ridiculous.
I don't see that it's that much different between sick and vacation leave, other than you're
Then
just
why don't you leave
defining.
it sick and vacation leave instead of?
Because
leaving it
obviously we've had
PTO?
issues with it.
We do, and every time there's an issue, it comes in here and it's debated back and forth, and then.
Are we gonna work on
nothing's-
this or just
nothing's
argue
ever held
about it? Because
accountable.
I'd really like to.
I'm just giving my 2 cents.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get
It's a
stuck
fact.
in this cycle of arguing and bashing, and we never make progress. I'm getting really tired of it, to be honest.
I have a question about that.
We don't
Is there a
hold
total
anybody
we're looking
accountable
at
for this handbook right here. We're doing.
What's
Are we
that?
gonna hold people accountable for that now? I mean, they
just brought
literally
that
up.
haven't been doing.
Oh, I didn't write that down.
No, that's
Thank
that's
you.
something we need to kind of pay attention
Total
to.
None of it.
approval.
Because we mentioned, guy works for the city for 20 years and just takes the last year off. And we pay him for a year
say
vacation.
We have a cap.
Cap it
In,
at 2 years.
we have a cap in here. I thought.
And not on this one that was proposed, we don't.
No, that one doesn't have a cap, but I think we should put a cap on it.
Starting point. But what's our existing cap is what I'm trying to say.
The existing cap is no more than 80 hours carryover a year,
Okay.
which basically forces the employee to take time off during the year, which
It
everybody
doesn't.
needs. Huh?
It hasn't, and in multiple instances, an excuse comes and we end up paying them out.
Well, that's not going to happen in 2024, Brett, because I know the
We
employees don't
can't
have.
guarantee that.
I guarantee it right now.
They've
There's not
taken
enough. There's not
vacation.
enough vacation hours left in the year for anybody to accrue 80 hours or more than 80 hours.
So that's number C on page 7.
For 2024. It's not, they are using their vacation. What they're not doing is letting me know that they're using vacation.
Even the book that we're looking at here says a minimum of 24-hour notice.
I know if you read through the entire thing,
Yeah.
none of what is in our handbook has been happening, and it's been asked, and all that you've got is pushback and it not happening, and then people on this council just want to protect instead of hold people accountable.
And that's why we're here tonight, so we can make the rules so that everybody understands what's at stake here and how it's supposed to be proceeding from once this starts. This will start on the beginning of a pay period. So the sooner we get this ironed out, the sooner we can get the book printed, reviewed, approved, and then establish the start date. Today being the 21st, it's unlikely. Kelly's not here. I couldn't even tell you when the beginning of the pay period is because I don't know. Is it going to be the 26th this week? Is it going to be the 2nd of November? I don't know. So we'll find that out as well. And that's when it will become effective. Once you guys decide what you want to do, and it gets approved.
All right. Sick leave has a cap of 720 hours.
Under the old,
Under the old, that's what I'm trying to get a comparative.
Yeah.
And then the vacation is the
80 hour.
80 hour. That's all they can carry over. Is that what you?
Yeah.
1 year. And then this suggested policy says that they can only get paid out $240 if they, at separation, if it's a good separation.
So there, and see, I have a problem with that personally. I can speak from personal experience. I think I'm older than everybody in this room. I think I am. Not that it's really important. My age has nothing to do with it other than the fact I've worked all these years and
Right.
retired. But I will tell you that as I got older, I got sicker and I needed that time off. And I was allowed, now, like I said, every company's different on how much you can carry over. But our company had a vacation, or we call it PTO, and a sick leave time off policy instead of putting it under one umbrella. The way this is put under one umbrella, when somebody hits their 50s and beyond, they're more prone to get sick than somebody that's 20 years old or 30 years old. They're going to need more than 240 hours to take time off. If they break their leg, they're going to be off for 6 weeks.
So just
But
to
it only
just
costs
to-
40 hours.
clarify, the 240 is only at,
Oh, you're saying we'd pay them for the entire time they're on sick leave?
No,
Then how do they only get paid for 40 hours if they're out 6 weeks?
because the other time is short-term disability.
Not if it happens off the clock.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have insurance for that? Because we don't have insurance for
They
them.
need to get the insurance. I pay for my insurance.
Well, then here again, an issue that will come up in the future or something. Now, on the other hand, if they're digging a ditch because a water line broke or a gas line's broke and they're down in there and they slip in the mud and fall and break their leg, workers' comp, disability payment, we're covered. I don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But Mike pretty much lives on a farm, if you will. Jim pretty much lives on a farm, if you will. I don't know what Barry actually does out where he's at. Any of us, I got 1,000 walnuts on the ground in my yard. I about trip over them every time I walk outside the house. I'm so tired of them things. But one of these days, I might walk out there and roll my ankle on one of them walnuts, and I'm out. Break my back, break.
We get it. We get
I
it.
know, but so how are you going to cover that? That's what
When
I'm
I
saying.
had my
Can I
knee
math
surgery, I
this?
was off 5.5 months, 40 hours of vacation time. The rest of it was short-term disability.
But you had insurance to cover you.
Mhm.
Our employees don't. So how are we going to cover them?
hold on, can I,
Sure.
as it's written currently, they can accrue up to 720 in sick leave. And then keep that 80 hours of vacation each year if they want. So we're basically forcing them to burn off vacation if they have more than that 80. If you add that up, that's 20 weeks. I don't know how long it takes to accrue that. I'd have to do that math too. So that's actually a 20-week paid time off if they needed it. We wouldn't pay that out if they quit. They'd only get up to 240 if they quit with this new policy. So they can accrue more than the 240 currently, but it's in that sick leave category.
Please explain that. I don't follow that because we don't have in the new policy, we won't have a sick leave
Okay,
category.
People can choose to keep their PTO. It's
Right,
not going to get
right.
capped at the end of the year.
That's what you're saying. We're not going to cap the PTO. Okay,
Right.
All right.
Well, we are going to cap it at a point. We don't want them taking 2 years off paid on us, obviously.
At one
But we
time,
can do a similar cap to the PTO. Like they cannot hold more than
X number of hours.
XYZ PTO without burning it, like we do with the sick and vacation leave. You're just not defining it. So it's just used for whatever absence of leave they have. It's really no different than this policy outside how you define the day they took off. It really isn't. If you put it down to like side to side comparison, they could still, and when they're 55, 60, and they have surgery, they can get paid for those hours off if they've planned ahead appropriately. Obviously, that's on the employee. Both ways, it's on the employee to save their vacation or save their PTO. So it works both ways. It doesn't have to be defined. They can accrue and keep it. We're not taking it away, but we do want to cap it because we don't want.
So basically, we're just going to say you can accrue this many days every year, and you can never take more than 240 days of vacation time in a year.
Is that 20
I
weeks?
don't
I don't know.
understand
Terrified
the-
it
I thought we
is.
were
Take
wanting
more
to
than
encourage
240
them to
in a
take
year.
their vacation.
Well, that would match.
This policy
the
actually has a
or-
1 week mandatory vacation in it if you wanted to look at it.
Yeah, but that's all just 1 week mandatory. Until you get over 10 years, then you're required
So-
to take 160 hours.
3 weeks total.
Oh, sorry, I missed that part.
So
That'd be
4 weeks,
8 weeks,
8 weeks,
160 hours.
4 4 weeks.
4?
4 times 4
40,
is
40,
16.
yeah, 40 hours. Yeah, they'd be required to take 4.
And 3 weeks for 10 years to 15 years.
I want to get away with, if you're going to call it PTO, I want to get away from vacation and the term vacation and the term sick leave.
Time off.
Huh?
Time off.
It's just paid. time
PTO,
off.
paid time off, period. So they can, so you're saying, let me see if I understand this right. Or you're saying they can accumulate as many PTO hours as they want with no limit, period.
No, we will. end up
I'm asking
Go on.
Andy, hang on just a second.
Okay.
You know, and then as they get older, they will be required to take X number of hours off based on the years of service they've been here. So, and they can take more than that if they want to.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't interfere with the city of Eskridge's business or with 1 or 2 other people's vacation time, they can take the time off.
Correct.
And there would be no penalty for exceeding PTO carryover year after year, because you can continue to hold as much as you want. And in later years, say you're in your 60s and you're not planning on retiring until you're 65 or 67, but an accident occurs on or off the job. On the job would be workers' comp. So let's just say they need a kidney transplant. That's just extreme. They're going to be off for a year. They've got enough PTO to be off for a year.
I think if we define how we have the carryover, so you have PTO for emergency and PTO for general use.
Well,
No,
they're-
then you're going back to a sick and vacation
Yeah,
time.
PTO is PTO.
Yeah.
But,
PTO.
but
No,
well,
you
okay,
just-
carryover.
I agree.
You just
Carryover
have
for
a high on your PTO. That's it. We have a cap. It's just high. Like it's this 800 hours, which we presently do, or however you want to
We have
do
a
it.
500-hour cap, and anything more than that, I think they let you go 100 hours above it, and then they pay you out for those 100 hours. Something weird like that.
Use it or lose
But
it.
500. Well, you don't lose it.
They
You get paid for it.
Okay. I mean,
But
don't know.
you
You
cannot
could do it either way.
accrue more than 500. They have a weird math of how they do it, but 500 is the maximum amount.
at your job.
Jason,
And ours
Your
is
job,
very similar to
maximum.
this.
I'd have to look. I just moved jobs, so I don't know what the new one is. The old one did nothing carried over. If you had vacation time, it started over every year.
Yeah, I think ours is very generous with how much they carry over. Most of the places I've heard are far less than 500.
and like I said earlier, it's up to the individual companies to decide how they want to do it.
Right.
Post office, unlimited sick leave I could carry over. Unlimited. And I had 2,080 hours or plus when I retired. Now,
Did
they
you get
pay?
paid for it?
No, they did not pay me for it. It was, as far as I'm concerned, it was free insurance. I didn't need disability insurance because I had a year's worth of sick leave already built up
Right.
by the time I retired. So if I had gotten sick to the point where I was off work 9 months or longer, I was getting a paycheck every payday for that entire time. But it never happened. But they also have a policy that we can't incorporate or we can't implement according to Todd. And that is I got paid an additional amount of time for my accrued sick leave on my retirement. Now, does it add up? No. You take 2,080 hours and you multiply it by my salary at the time, which was $39 an hour. Divide that by 40 hours a week. I would have to live to be 157 or something like that in order to break even on the sick leave that I just lost, that I gave away. So if I could have came up with some kind of disease or injury that I could have got a doctor to get me off work for a year or two, then I would have been better off, because you know what? Not only would I have gotten paid for that, but I still would have got 2 years of added time to my retirement because I was still on the payroll for those 2 years.
Yeah.
So, you
Call
know,
in sick more, Terry.
I would have lost my job a long time ago if I'd called in sick like that. I
Unless
would
they
have.
have about 8,000 hours on the books, and ever she changed their policy, and then she had 80.
Yeah. And she was pretty pissed about it, wasn't she? Exactly.
But she probably, and my guess is she probably didn't have disability insurance on the side if she had 8,000 hours. My God, that's no, I don't buy that, Tim.
She had
That's a-
thousands. I don't know what the number is, but she had thousands and thousands, several thousand hours
Of
of
sick leave.
sick leave.
Hmm.
And they changed her policy and said now you have 80.
Wow, I just don't.
It's irrelevant if she had 81. They changed it to 80.
Yeah,
They robbed her.
but like I said, I knew people in the post office that bought disability insurance, but they never had any sick leaves. It's like you said a while ago. People know to the minute as soon as they can take time off.
So what are we gonna do?
I mean, we can just cap it, but that's what did we cap it at? It's just
Yeah,
the
that's
only
the question now. Where do you want to cap
The
it?
answer.
I think it's generous, but I like the 500 hour. Well, 240 a year, 480 cap.
They got 800 now under the
Yeah,
old
you're
policy.
taking away technically.
Do what?
You're taking away technically.
Well, they have 720 that they can use for medical. only.
Right. Valid. That's valid. I'm not denying.
And
they don't
80
get
is
paid-
sick leave.
They don't get
So
paid out for that. They
I mean,
would get
80
paid out for
vacation.
80 vacation.
So 800 is 20 weeks, and just because I like math, guys, is 12.5 weeks.
So that's not even half a year. You need 26 weeks to half a year, 6 months.
Terry, just to let you know, LWID caps theirs at 3 months, which is roughly 500 hours.
Mhm.
What's a
It's 160 times
Surgery.
480.
intensive surgery? 3 months.
Somewhere in there, 6 months, 9 months, it depends. How long was Dad down for hips?
Hips are different
Pretty quick.
because they want you up.
Yeah, I want you to moving, but
No, he can go to work for like 8 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
And you
So
have
that-
to do
that's-
them separate.
that's
So
2 months.
16 weeks.
Employee gets cancer.
Cancer's that's a
gonna-
hard battlefield to even argue working on.
cancer's a whole planet on its own.
So we probably should put a note in the handbook that strongly suggests the employees buy disability insurance
Short-term.
on their own, short term or long term.
I mean, we are allowing them to accrue.
We're allowing them to accrue, but when they hit that cap, are we going to change the policy so they can get more?
No.
I don't think there's a reason to do that.
So are we in agreement with the
500 hours of carryover.
The only reason I said 480 is because it works out mathematically with a 240 per year. But I don't care if it's 500.
I think they're going to need more. We don't have any employees yet. They're in the age category that's going to need time.
Jim's getting close.
Just saying. And unfortunately, I think the younger generation doesn't think about what it's going to be like for them 40 years from now.
Right.
If they're in their 20s and they're working to be in their 60s or early 70s to retire, they're not thinking about the future and what they're going to need time off if something develops. They're thinking about today.
Well, we could always say we will offer the 500 hours maximum carryover, and strongly recommend that employees get a short-term or long-term disability insurance.
I don't think we need to mention the insurance.
I don't think so.
I mean, it's inexpensive.
That's something that's on them to consider.
Does the insurance that we provide for them now offer?
Can they upgrade the policy to that?
I don't
if
know
they
that.
chip in $15 a month, will they
I
have a
think
short-term
that's-
disability?
An added policy, and I'm not sure that it's something we're offering to them right now.
Well, not necessarily something that we're offering, but something that's available that they could add to their
No,
insurance.
I think they'd have to go find it themselves.
Find
is
it
what
Aflac specializes
Right,
in
and we don't bring it in Aflac if you want that. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe we can make a deal with Aflac. We got 3 employees. Can you make us a deal?
Right?
They'd probably laugh at us.
No money or anything from that. I know.
So so we're gonna scratch the sick leave policy off the current one, right? We're just gonna X that entire section out.
Right, you don't,
Okay, so we're gonna X the entire B4 under sick leave.
vacation.
And we're gonna do the same thing with B3 on vacations, right? Because everything's changing from vacation and sick leave to PTO.
Yeah.
So I know it said, oh, I was just looking at this other day, something about notice.
Let's see, number C.
Yeah.
Which C? They repeat.
On page 7.
4C.
Page 7, the top. The top C. Vacation leave earned in 1 year may be carried over no more than 12 months.
Right.
Oh, yeah, here you go.
Okay, request for vacation leave will be made by giving minimum 24-hour notice.
But we're crossing that entire section off.
Right.
You were trying to look at the notice
So-
factor, the
said
extended
that we
leave. I know what you're getting at.
I say that we keep number C.
So 24-hour notice is what you're saying for scheduled.
And you can carry over no more than what you've accrued in 1 year, because that way it limits it to the 500 hours or whatever, 480.
And we could also keep the extended vacation leave
1 week notice.
at 1 week notice.
Mm-hmm.
That goes under your PTO rules.
Right.
You would have to add it to your 9-day mandatory leave. If we scratch the entire.
We would keep D.
Salvation. So PTO.
Keep E.
You don't have, not the carryover stuff though.
Oh, you're talking paid holidays which occur during vacation leave are not counted as days of vacation.
Right. That's fair enough.
F wouldn't make any sense if we kept it.
Well, you wouldn't keep E because it already has a separation leave payment policy in it, which is that 240 right there. So it'd actually be different than that.
Okay.
So it's covered, is what I'm
Okay.
trying to say. You wouldn't do all of C, you just do the request for vacation.
Which part would you eliminate?
Well, the vacation leave earned in 1 year may be carried over no more than 12 months, limited to up to 80 hours, not or
Oh, it would change the number there. Limited up to 240.
well, 480s are capped, right?
Yeah, and if you got 240 in 1 year, you can't carry that over again. You can only carry it over once.
Why?
So you get 240.
I don't
this
even
year.
think about carryover. If you have a cap, you can't get more than 480. That's how I think of it.
That's the way I think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, we
just
don't
a
have-
different way of saying the same thing.
Yeah. I just think it gets confusing when you have that, like, because then it's like, when does the cap refresh? When do
So you can eliminate
roll
that
it
first
in?
sentence.
Yeah.
Well, you can leave it in there. You just change the thing. Vacation, PTO earned in 1 year may be carried over no more than, it may be carried over limited to 480 hours.
Yes.
It's just simplify the sentence.
Just simplify.
We're
the
saying the
sentence.
same thing in different
Yeah.
ways.
Yep.
Are you limiting to PTO to 1/2 hour increments minimum?
I think that's fair.
Yep.
Vacation hours are still relatively new to me.
If somebody is off on short-term disability, whatever, for 6 months, I don't think that they accrue vacation while they're off on leave.
They do if it's job related. If the injury is job related, they should accrue.
I wouldn't argue that.
That's stipulated by
Nothing.
Yeah.
nothing.
FMLA only guarantees that you have a job when you come back from your absence.
Yeah,
That's
that's all.
all it
Yes.
guarantees.
But not workers' comp.
We don't
Type
have
stuff?
FM.
Or is that just covering the medical bills?
Anyway.
workers' comp covers medical bills. What are you thinking they should do? Workers' comp.
Well, I guess I was just questioning if it's on the job, workers' comp doesn't do anything outside medical bills.
You mean like paying them for accrued sick leave while they're out?
Well, he just said they wouldn't be
Accrued PTO,
accruing.
they
That's
would-
what I'm saying.
They wouldn't be. I don't think workers' comp covers. I don't think workers' comp pays you PTO time for being off work due to job related injury. I think they just cover your medical bills and your salary.
But they don't. I'm talking about the accrual. Of
Yeah, I'm with you now. I've never heard of that. Now, something we could look into and find out, but I've never heard of that. Richard, have you?
I was thinking on work comp, they got paid a portion of their.
Well, they
wage,
do. They get it's a portion. It's not 100%.
80% or something.
Yeah.
like
It's not.
Short-term
I know it's not.
disabilities like
I know it's not 100%. I know that.
I don't know. My son just did that, but he's a part-time employee, so his
You get
time off
100%
is
for
time
2 weeks,
off.
80 for 2
Like it
weeks,
doesn't matter if they caused it or not.
But while you're off work, you do not accrue more vacation time.
Even if it's job related, is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
That's
not,
what
I'm
I'm
not touching that.
Okay, that's what I was just like. Which I don't
I
understand.
think that's
Once
something.
you get your knees replaced, that's not job related. That's something that you just
Right.
go do,
Right.
and you don't accrue time while you're not out.
And your workers' comp and your company did not pay that. You paid
So
it
you
through
wouldn't
your.
accrue time if you're off on maternity
Huh.
leave either.
Correct.
Hold on,
Absolutely.
though. Like we don't change that when they take vacation now. So I'm confused as
So if
to
they take
is
2
it
weeks
a
of
long
vacation, then they
term?
don't earn more vacation.
Yeah,
while they're off.
I don't mean like if somebody's off for a week.
You're
That's
talking about a long term.
Say 3 months as an example. 3
or
months.
1 month, whatever. Yeah,
How long are you out for your legs?
5.5
5.5 what
months.
months? Okay.
And you didn't accrue during that time.
He has a weird setup where he works on how people get time off. I think that particular.
Isn't this
company.
basically that? Or-
No, this is a different policy. I actually forgot his at home, but it's similar.
Do you think they should accrue time while they're off on
Who wrote this up?
anyone?
Clay.
Clay found it.
If it's-
Wrote it up.
I think they should if their absence
What's
is
your
job
point?
related.
I honestly, I don't know. I hadn't thought of it.
Well, you get your
You
time
can
accrued
Google
for
it and
hours
find
worked,
Stuff like this, though.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
but you're not here working.
I find it weird though because we
That's
do
like giving
it
you
But you're
overtime for hours.
as a
that
pay
you're
period
working.
accrual.
It's weird because you're getting paid earned hours. So you can
Yeah.
argue that you're getting paid earned hours.
Let me ask you this question.
It is
When
weird.
someone takes, in this case, 2 weeks off on PTO and they go somewhere. Let's say they decide to go up the New England coast and visit all the lighthouses.
We don't need.
You don't need, I'm just throwing some
It's fun,
examples
though.
out there. I want everybody to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Do they or do they not earn vacation time while they're on vacation?
for
They
sure.
do.
Then what's the difference?
Yeah, that's what I
They're
mean.
not
Is
working. They're
here's
not
a-
working.
I
They're on
have a hang up
vacation.
on
They're
that.
not working. It's the same thing. If you're on workers' comp, you're not working. You're
You're
getting,
you're
That's
still
a 1
employed.
That's a 1 or 2 week time frame. That's something that's. I see that different.
that's
I
what
don't
I'm-
know. I think
we
it's-
just need to look into
I mean,
it.
if you earned
We
your
would have to
leave-
define how you earn your vacation time because now it's no longer earned per pay period.
Yeah, that changes. I mean, because we don't do that currently. We have nothing written in to do that currently. And I don't know why PCO would change that, I guess. If you take a large portion of time off, if you're still employed with the job, you're still returning to the job, you're still accruing per pay period in my mind.
In my mind, you are
Because you're
too.
40-hour a
But if
week
you guys didn't want to
employee.
do that, at least give them half of it. Give them 2 hours or
Because then,
Oh, no.
you're
All or
burning.
nothing.
That's crazy. You're burning all your leave and then you're not even accruing anymore.
Okay. Move
No,
on.
I'm just curious. That's I can't believe they do that.
Well,
That
I don't see any
sucks.
reason why we can't look into that and see what workers' comp does cover.
Yeah.
In an absence like that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure all that, all the details.
Where I worked before, if you were off on work comp, you accrued your vacation time because it was a work-related injury.
And I believe that to be correct, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of that, so I can't vouch for it. But it seems logical to me that you would. But does workers' comp pay the company for that accrual of the PTO? Or is that the company paying for it? Do you know?
Well, the state is what pays the employee when they're on work comp.
Right?
but they're not gonna pay the employer for the earned vacation.
Yeah, see,
I think-
yeah.
I think I could see the argument both ways there, because work comp, you didn't choose to be off work. So you should still be accruing your vacation time. That makes sense. And I can see the argument for you chose to be off work and maybe you're not earning your vacation time while you're off work. But how does that work if you're not on workman's comp, but
Like
you had a heart attack and you're out for 6 weeks?
An off the clock disability, an off the
Right.
clock disability. Well, it goes back to what Tim said earlier tonight. They have to come up with their own disability insurance that our company doesn't cover.
And that's fine, but how does the leave accrual work for that instance?
Well, because it wasn't a work-related injury, they don't earn because they're not working.
Because now they've had a heart attack at home,
Yeah,
off duty.
Yeah.
And they're in the hospital for 6 weeks.
yeah.
And now we're not giving them, they're not accruing any vacation time, and it's no fault of their own.
Right. It is weird to me.
It seems odd.
We can revisit that. At this point, it's not even in this policy, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay, well.
So right as it stands right now,
I hope
even
nothing happens to anybody. I really truly hope nothing happens.
right.
But if we don't implement it, if we implement it later when the situation comes up, then why are we here tonight?
Right.
I mean, in current existence, we pay them per pay period, and that's the end of this story, basically.
Pay what per pay period?
They earn
they're-
vacation time every pay
Vacation.
period. It doesn't matter.
Whether they're work-related injury or not?
Right now, because we don't even in here, that's not even identified.
Whether they're on the here working or home.
The only thing that identifies it in the current manual is the part where it says
They approve your pay period.
for hours worked. Right?
Ooh, I do remember that. Where was that at?
It says per pay period. Page 6, very bottom.
Yep.
Full-time employees receive vacation monthly at a rate determined by years of service. Employee less than 10 accrue 4 hours per pay period.
So right now, whether they're here or not, they earn it per pay period.
No, look at number 3 under vacation. Vacation leave shall be earned and accrued from the most recent day of employment.
Where are you?
Right above that,
The
Okay.
very beginning.
very first word under vacation.
No vacation leave shall be granted until employees gain permanent status.
Any employee who works less than 96 hours in any month shall accrue no vacation credit.
Oh,
So it is in there that they have to work to
At
get the
least
credit.
96 hours.
Has that been happening?
Oh yeah, our employees are getting 96 hours or better. They get 80 in 2 weeks. So if they take vacation or sick leave, those are hours that count as work hours, even though they're not working for leave credit purposes. No employee shall be permitted to use vacation time for any period spent on unauthorized leave. Okay, that's not covering anything. Here's where it's covered. Provided the limit of 96 hours shall not apply to an employee on vacation or sick leave. So they continue to accrue PTO, in this case, vacation or sick leave, however way you want to phrase it, when they're on vacation or sick leave.
Okay.
That's normal. I think that's a normal given.
Okay.
It should be, but
Let's move on.
at least it's written there.
Next.
Who's writing all this down?
I've got some notes. I know Andy's got a bunch of notes.
Well, I'm scribbling out what we need to omit, and I have
I think I'm gonna go back and rewatch all of this. And
I say that we keep B also on the top of page 7.
yeah.
So we keep B, we keep C, except for the very first sentence of C.
which we
We
modified.
keep D.
This is 3C. C modified. D.
We keep the paragraph that's right under that Terry just pointed out.
And change the word vacation to PTO.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're. Well, it's not all leave. It's just 240. But yeah,
I don't want to touch funeral leave again because we just set
No.
that policy very recently.
I think, and you like the idea of not counting the 3 days against their PTO balance, right?
Absolutely.
right.
So I think
That's a
we add that
separate-
line and that's good for funeral.
I don't even think it needs to be put in there. I think it's a given. I've never seen a place that charges your PTO for your, except for what he said he worked. I've never even heard of that.
I don't even remember how it worked for moms.
Yeah,
Have you ever heard of it, Richard?
I'm
I
sorry.
don't have
Have
it.
you heard of a place that charges against your vacation, your PTO, for your bereavement leave?
No, we did not.
Your
where I
job doesn't
worked.
work like that, does it?
Yeah,
It was
when my,
separate.
when my brother passed away,
I heard
he
that
lived
was-
in Louisiana. I took 3 days of personal leave for bereavement leave. They couldn't stop me from going. That's what the bereavement leave for me was. They
What-
couldn't
that
stop
they
me
couldn't
from
stop
going.
you.
Pardon
Okay.
me? They couldn't stop me from going, and it couldn't be held against my attendance. But I needed more than 3 days because of
Yeah.
travel. So I had to take, not only did I have to use my own sick leave was authorized for that. I had to use my own sick leave for the funeral, and I took vacation days the day before and the days after. And none of that counted against me on attendance, but it was at my expense, not the government's.
I think I burned my vacation time for mom's funeral.
I've
but
always
you
had
know,
a bereavement policy on my job.
But when a
so-
company
Yeah,
sets a
very
policy like that,
bereavement.
when a
I kind
company
of think you should if it's your spouse or something. It's kind of wild. Like, oh, 3 days, come back. But that's just
My mom passed away in
not
February,
gonna open
and
the
I'm going
can.
to Montana next month to spread her ashes.
Mhm.
And I get to use 4 days of bereavement that
It's
it's not
free.
coming out of my time.
Right, that's why I said your company is an exception. I've heard you talk about various things that your company does and doesn't do for your personal time off, and confusing to me, but it's because I don't work there.
Baritone, do the can't be done.
I don't think
So
it's
what I'm saying is, if a
rare.
company that sets a policy, when somebody hires on, they read this policy and they're good with it because they know what's expected of them from that day forward. The problem is we've never had that set up from that day forward.
And that's our goal, is to get that.
To fine tune it to where somebody coming in for the very first time can read what the handbook says and know what's expected of them.
And to be honest, that's why I like the PTO policy. It is so much less confusing.
Yeah, let's go to page 8. B7, number A. Scheduled leave is any leave requested and approved in, I say we put 24 hours advance.
V7A.
Yep.
Okay.
Just put 24 hours right after the word in.
And change leave to PTO again.
Right.
Well, scheduled leave it means the same thing.
Well,
Scheduled leave, that's, what's the L stand for?
What are we changing? 48 to
It's,
Yeah, scheduled leave is
If you
any
wanna
leave
change the
requested and
PTO,
approved
doesn't
in
matter.
advance.
I'm just trying to keep
But the
keep
next
the language
sentence
the
says
same
sick,
throughout the whole
sick
book.
leave. The next words or sentence says sick leave. We change that PTO.
Sick leave used for medical care must be
PTO
made at least
used.
48 hours in advance,
Sorry, hold on.
such as routine appointments.
Unscheduled leave
My
occurs
kids.
when an employee does not give the employee.
Now, there are exceptions to that 48-hour rule as well. How many times have you had an appointment set up? So today is October 21st. So you've got an appointment. Your next appointment is November 12th. The doctor calls you up at 4:00 this afternoon and says, hey, we got an opening
We need you in now.
and we need you in tomorrow at 9:00.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you can't give a 48-hour notice. I mean, how many times has that happened? I know everybody here's probably had that experience at one time or
My
another.
first colonoscopy, I was sitting in the doctor's office, ready to go,
You want it black and white.
and they
Tim.
had
I
to
want it black
reschedule
and
me for
white
the
too.
next day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, that's a rare occurrence. That's not going to happen every single week. That gets you one little mark.
when you come up every single week, well, my doctor called and said blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so
Then you get 30 of those marks in 1 month. That's a sign. How else are we going to keep track of those marks?
Who's going to keep track of the marks?
yeah, and not only
Who
that,
keeps track of time right now?
not only that,
The clerk.
but how many marks
So we
should
know
you
when
get
they're
before
going
you
on
start
vacation and when
pressing
they're
the
not,
issue?
when they're going sick and when they're not.
30 marks is
Your
a
supervisor.
year's time.
Yeah, supervisor discretion.
And then, so that's discriminatory in itself.
I missed your point because
How many marks does an employee get before discipline starts to occur?
That's not in this policy at this
I
point.
know, but Tim's using the example. If they get 30 marks, and then we're going to start doing something about
I
it.
don't want to write a black and white number. I want them to look at their employee and go,
If
like,
they're
this is a problem.
Yeah.
You can tell. You can
And I'm not
tell.
even talking about a disciplinary action. I've never mentioned that. All I said was on their eval in that column that says attendance. Man, they've got 50 unscheduled absences and the other employees have 5 and 7. Well, this person only gets a 1 instead of a 5.
I could be wrong, but I personally don't think the Eskridge evaluation has anything on it for attendance.
It doesn't.
I'm pretty sure
There's no
it don't.
punctuality column.
I'm pretty sure it don't.
Well,
And you can.
that's
I
a
mean,
later
it's
conversation.
Very hard to fail one of those as well.
We can look at that later. That's not tonight.
I think we should look at that later. But
Evals are so difficult in general.
Okay, so V7 under B, second line, sick leave cannot be denied. You might as well strike that sentence. We don't have sick leave. Vacation leave, strike that vacation, put PTO.
What page are you on now?
We're still on page 8, V7.
Okay.
PTO leave can be denied when services are required of the employee, such as emergency repairs, blah, blah, blah. Well, sure. That's just putting in black and white what everybody already knows.
Which is what I was making my point about earlier. When somebody wants to take off at 2 PM and we got a pipe that needs to be repaired, and you're saying I can't deny them that they can go. It just counts as a tick against them because they left. But it's an emergency. We
Who
need
says
it
they can't
covered.
deny you?
I did not say they can't deny them.
What did you say, Tim? You said they can go. Why would I stop them from going? You said it's their personal time. They should be able to go. And it would be a tick mark.
I think we're having a misunderstanding real quick. He's saying that it's an unscheduled absence, but it's not going to be a negative. If you need him, he can't take the unscheduled absence. If he's like, hey, man, my kid's got to play tonight. Well, we got this valve that we have to replace because we were hemorrhaging water out of the lake. We have to fix this. Sorry, you're going to miss the kid's play. Life happens. That's how that goes. But,
All right,
hey, I
that's
want
fine.
to take the afternoon off because my kid's got to play. Yeah, we got nothing going on. It's an unscheduled absence, but it's not a negative.
Yeah, that's fine. I hope all these things do not happen for the next 15 months or 14 or 12 or whatever I got left.
Well, it doesn't matter if they do happen.
I know it don't
We've
matter.
seen
It's-
evidence of that.
Yeah.
Because of
This is also
different
not.
circumstances. But we always leave that
It's
out,
always
don't
a
we?
different circumstance. That's the number one excuse.
I don't like always or never in an argument. You can just drop them right out, 'cause that's not how it's worked. The one time we've done something was last year because they had no second or third employee for 8 months. That was the reason. That's it. It's very simple, black and white. It's not special treatment. It's because they weren't able to take the time off.
Hey, that's enough.
June,
Hey,
what they
that's
were
enough.
supposed
Let's
to
stay
do.
focused. I want to get out of here.
But they didn't
hey,
have the
that's enough.
ability.
Let's
I
go-
should
let's
be able
move
to
on.
finish the point that
Well,
I'm
you
trying
won't
to
let
make.
other
I'm
people
not-
finish theirs, Annie. You break in all the time and say, let's
So
get back
do
on task.
you.
Well, then let's get on the task then and stop it.
I'm tired of the little cuts, and then we don't get a reply. That's ridiculous. Okay. It gets old, is what I'm saying.
Where you at next, Tim?
I know you're clear on page 8, but I'm going to go back to page 5 when we're done.
Well, I'm just reading the vehicle policy. I think we've already hammered that one out. Does it need to be addressed at all?
I think
No.
that we should have somebody on call and that person should take the truck and the other two should be parked.
not how that
Where
works.
though?
What do you mean?
Where's a safe place to put them?
Yeah, I mean, we've had how many vehicles ruined here?
There's a red truck sitting right here.
Is
A
it?
red
Used
truck
all the
full of
time.
tools though. I'm not gonna argue your point.
I mean, the
I
city
don't know where to
employee in
put 'em.
Alma got their vehicle stored right in front of their yard in town.
What
right
if
in
we
front of
could
their house.
partner up with the
Strict in-
county and park them inside the county building beside my house? It's empty. That's a big garage right there.
It's a non-argument.
Then they still have to
At
drive.
any
through it.
given time, if they need more than one person on call, everybody's on call.
So they come in and they get their truck and they can get it
And
when
we
they clock
delay
in.
response for emergency. That's a stupid idea. I'm sorry, and I hate to say it like that.
Right now, we only have 2 people certified and a third person driving a truck home. What's stupid about that truck sitting here? He's not going to be called out for anything because he's not certified in
He's not
anything.
certified, but he can still help. He can
Um,
follow direction, and that's the way our system is set up.
He couldn't service the call on his own, but he can also go to the call.
And learn how to operate in an emergency situation while we do have
Cross training.
a qualified individual. I think dipping more into the
It's
vehicle
all right, I'm
issue.
done. I don't want to listen to it.
Okay.
So what was your issue on page 5, Brett?
Were you done before we jump back?
Well, I just merely asked if we needed to address the vehicle thing, but
No, I think the way it was written was to adhere to the tax code.
and I think the section V9, the maternity/paternity leave, that's already been established. I don't believe it needs to be revisited. So let's go back to page 5. Which part were you addressing, Brett?
It says
Where are you at?
under benefits.
Okay.
So it said, and 50% of the balance of the employee enrolls of the employee spouse and family coverage. I would like to take out covering half of the family coverage.
You want any argument from me on that? We've got the most generous insurance policy I've ever heard of.
We have more so than towns our size that have more employees and more money.
I'm not in favor of altering the insurance policy at this point. I would like more information on that before we made that kind of a change.
Do we have a cost analysis for that? Just so I know.
At the meeting, Kelly said, so I haven't looked at it, I'm just going off hearsay from what she said when she got it, that it was gonna be a 5% increase this year, which I find that hard to believe because it's been over 30% for years
I thought it was
collectively
a
in a row.
3.5 this year.
And I thought it was 5%.
Hey, Tim,
I think I heard 5%. I don't remember. What's the
Hey,
difference in
Tim.
cost for us covering 50%?
That flow sinks.
About
That's
$9,000.
I turn the water valve
A year
off.
for the-
So you've got a tank
per
full of
family?
water, but
Or per employee?
per employee.
So grand total of 18, 20, 27?
The way it sets right now, it could be 18.
Before employees,
Could be
Jason.
3.
Four employees, yeah.
It could be 36,000. There's 2
Okay.
employees not on it right now, but they can opt in at any moment.
I think we need to have the exact figures, not
I
play
think.
around with that number.
Play around with what number?
4
Changing
people
the
at
percentage.
36, because we don't have 4 people with the potential for that right now. We need to know how much.
We
it's
do
cost.
have the potential for 4 people
I know,
right
but
now.
we're not paying that. That's not my point. My point is we need to know what we're saving by not doing it.
I'm telling you, $8,000 per person, and that's the limit. It's actually more than that.
I'd rather still have all that information right
Um,
here to
what-
talk
so-
about it.
Just so I can wrap my brain around it because I don't have it in front of me. How much does the employee insurance cost the city annually right now?
So Jim and Mike's, I can't give you the exact number,
We
between
don't have the
11
figures.
and 12,000. But I have a good memory, and I've been looking into this and doing the figures for several years now. So I've retained some of it.
Can we
So it's
rewind
about
for a
11
second?
to 12,000 per person, and then 8,000 of that, more of that is the family plan added on to it.
You said, sorry, last year was 30% increase and this year is a 5%, but you don't believe it's a 5% increase? I'm confused.
I
with that.
said I was only told by knowledge. I haven't seen it or looked at it, so I can only say what I've been told.
But you
I
don't
just-
think that's accurate?
I find it hard to believe when it's been over 30%
That's because
consecutively for
we
years.
had, no, it's been the last 2 years. It was an unprecedented insurance raise. Last year, we had a 30% increase. Everybody in the country, I
in the
believe,
prior year
had
it
a
was over
massive, it was the
30%,
last 2 years.
and the prior year to that was over 30%.
I don't know that that's true, because I don't,
The
Yeah,
county's
well,
increase for
people around
2025 is 3.5.
I thought it was 3.5 at the meeting.
About the lights.
I'm pretty sure she
Because I was
said
looking
5.
at it.
It was surprisingly
I
low.
thought I
for
remember
next year.
hearing 5 was kind of 3.5. I don't know.
But-
5 sounds familiar.
The point being, the last 2 years that it went that 30% increase, it was crazy stupid, and everybody had problems then. So
See, I was thinking it was like 8% the year I started, and then it went 30 the next year, and then 30 last year.
yeah, it wasn't like
So
that
5%
every
is still
year.
It's still low compared to what the last 3 years have been.
Yeah.
Prior to those 3 years, I couldn't tell you what the
It
rates
wasn't
were.
just health insurance either, because I know Payday Talk came in and personally addressed us about the insurance on the apartments went the same way, like 30% increase. So there were like several fields that just went bananas in the last 2 years.
And
So
see,
I
the
think we're
thing
returning
is-
to some normalcy.
Is that you don't know what next year is going to be.
No, we don't
We have to
know.
absorb that 30% and continue. Like, well, at what point are we going to say, no, we cannot be leading the pack here as the city of Eskridge with 4 potential employees when everybody else with more aren't even giving their employees that. Our school district, I mean,
The school district
we have a
is
really
comparable
generous
to our
plan. I
plan.
mean, all the spouses of our employees work for the school and drop that insurance to come on ours. So that has to say something that we're quite generous in what we.
Well, we had an employee that was
Have.
part-time and wanted to go full-time just for the insurance.
Yeah.
And we got a part-time job that we're paying full-time for, plus we're paying insurance on top of that.
Kelly.
What confused you about that?
That's not the only reason she wanted to go.
That's what she
full-time.
said. She sat right there and said, because she wants the insurance.
That's exactly what she said.
That's neither here nor there. Let's get back on the handbook.
Also, the school's insurance is comparable to ours. I've actually had that conversation with somebody, multiple people at the school, and it's just different by a few dollars.
I don't know anything about the school's insurance.
I can tell you that it's very similar
We don't compare.
Then why don't they take the school's insurance instead of
because it's a few dollars cheaper to come here. What? I'm so confused by this line of argument.
Anyway,
Actually,
moving down
paying
to
for it is quite a bit.
attendance and leave, and I'll get those numbers, the exact numbers for you.
Please.
But I know that it's 11 to 12, and I know that it's 8, and so.
Anyway, go ahead.
Where it says in E, if you go through there, public works employees performing water plant duties must clock in before performing weekend duties. Employee will be paid 3.5 hours of actual time or actual time worked. The water plant, they must clock in before performing. So they're coming to City Hall, right, to clock in?
There's a clock at the.
There is, but who has the master key to the clock at the city shop? Because here, nobody has a master key to manipulate the
When
time.
did they
There
get
has to be
that
a
clock?
master key at the city shop.
When did they get a clock at the shop?
I don't know. Ask the supervisor.
It was this year sometime, I'm sure. There's never really been one down there before. I don't know. We didn't approve it or purchase it. I do know that.
I think
But-
that's unauthorized.
They should be clocking in before they're going out there. And I would like to take it down to like 1.5 or 2 hours instead of the 3.5. And that's just by Terry. I had a conversation with you and you had said you had talked to Mike and you asked him about what that would, the amount of hours it would take to go out there, whatever. And he said 1 to 1.5 is most all the time what it's going to take. Do you remember that?
Sorry, I don't remember it. I don't. There's so much that goes on. I couldn't tell
So
you if I.
I remember it,
it.
so I wanted to cut that out. Or if they have it, get rid of it completely and let the person that's going to be on call leave 3 hours earlier, come in 3 hours later.
Flex their time, you mean?
And I don't like flex time. That's another suggestion.
It's flexing time, though. That's what you're suggesting.
For that, yes, but a set schedule, I really feel that we should have an 8 o'clock, because between 6 to 8, if they come in at 6, 6:30, 7:30, I mean, what are you doing at those hours really accomplishing to get done? And nobody, including citizens and everybody, do not know when an employee is really on the clock or not, because they could have flexed
I have
it.
the
they
same
could have
question
not,
about our
they-
part-time employees, actually.
And their makeup hours as you go, all of them. That's why they do that. They don't have any set
I didn't know
hours.
you could trim bushes and weeds and trees in the dark for 2 hours. I find that interesting.
You could watch a fire that you have going, a brush fire.
Every week.
Yeah, but that's a totally different subject too. But they shouldn't start a fire at 6 at night, knowing damn well it's going to be dark at 8, and the fire is going to burn for 4 hours. They shouldn't even start it at 6. They should wait till the next day and start it earlier in the day.
Well,
If
you don't
that's the
have any
case.
set hours for them, so if they went out at
Then-
5,
Okay, then they don't burn. Period. I mean, we established a policy. They don't.
well, right. So then you need to tell them that.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I'm asking is that they don't have an established schedule. Some of them are on call, obviously, but some of them are not. It was a 5.35% increase on the insurance. That's why the 3.5 was stuck in my brain. I just pulled it up.
Anyway, that's a suggestion there, and then
Well, I think you should make a note on that, because once the book gets rewritten, it's going to have to go to open session, and you're going to have to vote on these changes and approve or not approve it.
I have a question on this 3.5 hours. Is that for the whole entire Saturday and Sunday?
Just each day.
it's
Each
each day. So it's actually like 7 hours of overtime.
Well, I say we just,
You guys just voted this in, by the way, just as a refresher, like last year, I think, or the year before.
We just did the vacation.
You were
last
in
year.
favor of it when it was put in.
What?
So I find that really weird that you're suddenly backing it out. This 3.5 hours overtime, you were in favor of this, I remember.
I probably wasn't.
I
wanted
think
it
you should
changed
probably
last time.
Check your little ironclad memory there. Yes.
It is pretty ironclad.
I'm
and
pretty sure you voted for it, which I found interesting. I thought it was
I could
weird
have
at the
voted
time.
for it. I could vote for this handbook when we.
No, it
do
was
but
this
it doesn't mean that I
edition
want to do it.
specifically that you voted for. I mean, I could be wrong, but I thought you were in favor of it when we put it in.
No, I wanted to.
This
get
is a
rid of the
recent change.
3.5 hours. I wanted to get rid of the 3.5 hours. This isn't the first time I've suggested it. I wanted to get rid of 3 trucks going home.
I don't
see
know why
why.
the person that's in charge of watching the water plant on Saturday and Sunday, why don't they get off one of the following days of the week?
That's flex time.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
don't-
how the on-call works, or sorry, let me suck that back in. I didn't mean to say that like that. I don't know how, I don't know. Like when Dad works overnight, but he's an on-call job, so maybe that's not the same comparison. They don't want him to flex.
Mm-mm.
They want
'Cause
him
he
on his
had-
normal schedule.
He had duties he had to perform during
right,
the
and
normal
I
work
think
week.
is that the issue?
And we have that kind of the same
Was he the
issue.
only person there though?
No, God, no.
Really?
But he was the one they would call at 3:00 in the morning to log into the plant.
They rotated their on-call, and then if he was on call, they still wanted him at 8 a.m. or 11 p.m. if he was on third.
There is another outside the box thought too.
What's that?
You got 3 employees. One of them could work Monday through Friday. Another one could work Tuesday through Saturday.
Well,
And the other
that's
one could
true.
work Sunday through Thursday. And then you get the weekend covered, and you don't have overtime on Saturday and Sunday.
but the one,
And they can do an 8-hour job on Saturday, just like they do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or Friday.
with
And I'm not
supervision.
against that. I just
They
really.
work without supervision now. We
Okay.
have a supervisor, but they're not down their throat all day long seeing what they're doing or not doing.
Okay, I do like that.
I think the we're gonna start all over. I think the 3.5 hours was to cover the fact that he goes out multiple times a day. So yes, when he
Allegedly
goes,
multiple times a day.
when he,
I'm
it's not a
just saying.
criminal case. This is what they say they're doing.
Well, from what I got from what Mike had said, they go out once a day and it takes about an hour.
I'd like to hear that from Mike, I guess, then, or the discussion about this with Mike, because I don't want to take away what they're doing. And this, we literally just did this, I swear, 2 years. It was voted in. It wasn't this change.
You're right. This entire book was
Ju-
redone.
no.
The entire
Last
book was
year.
redone last
Took us
year,
6
and
months.
everybody voted on it the way it was. An issue came up, and
But
we're
this-
supposed to be talking about that issue tonight, and now we're talking about a whole bunch of other stuff.
Paragraph specifically was altered at that time, and it actually, I think, increased the amount of time they were paid.
No, they've
people were
always
in
had the
favor.
3.5 hours.
I do.
We changed something about it, or maybe it was the greater time worked, actual time worked. Maybe that was it.
Well, there's an older one there.
I got an older one right here. This
Maybe it was
dated in,
we
April-
added the actual time
15,
worked.
April 2015.
Because I think that was the concern. If they work more than 3.5 hours, they're not getting compensated. That's probably what it was.
Which
Sorry. My
was
memory
told us,
doesn't
I'm
always go.
sure that never happens unless there's a catastrophe. Like it's a one and done, hour and a half tops, one time Saturday, one time Sunday.
Depending on the weather.
I think they
So,
go
in the-
multiple times at different times.
In the handbook dated in 2015, it says public works employees permitting water plant duties will be allowed 3.5 hours of overtime for each observed holiday work.
Holiday?
Well, it says,
Right.
okay, well, but let me just take a little further.
You're right. What did it say before?
I'm looking. That was under holidays. Oh, okay. Hours of work. Public works employees performing water plant duties will be allowed 3.5 hours paid overtime for each day worked on the weekend. That was highlighted right there.
So that was from 2015.
This is from 2015. And in all probability, that either was in prior to 2015 or it was revised at that point. I mean, that would make sense. And I think I've got an older book at home. I think I got one dated 1997 at home.
I think Annie is right. This is what we discussed. And Mike's issue was, what if you had to
He
go
doesn't
out there
wanna
and you
get
spent
enough
4
overtime.
hours, 5 hours? It
For
says
actual-
right here, you're only getting 3.5.
For
And that's why we added whichever is
Or
greater.
greater time.
That's what we changed on it. So if they did have to work more than 3.5 hours, we were making sure that we were paying them for that. extra
Yeah,
time.
we
And
changed that.
absolutely, if they work more than 3.5
Sure.
hours, we should get. But
That's why
as
nobody
a whole,
disagreed with it.
collectively, probably 95% of the year,
He said that
they're going
also
out there once a day, 1 hour.
Hee-hoo.
when we had this discussion a year or two ago.
And that's
I don't
what,
recall him being there during this discussion, period.
I don't recall him being there either, but as I said earlier, I don't even recall what happened last week most of the time.
I don't
But my note here says,
I have a decent
I
recall.
think it was the year before because we
I'm
have
good
it
with
on.
numbers.
my note here says that we added or exact time work, whichever is greater. We added that to the 2015.
Okay,
It's on
Yeah.
here.
that was the alteration. Sorry, my brain was.
So I
Knew there was a
wasn't
change.
for it.
You might have been. Who knows? Could still be true.
Doesn't matter.
So are we in a position where we can call this a night
I think.
and have it redone so we can look at it? Can we get it redone and looked at it next week on the 28th during council meeting?
Would you guys?
Speaking of which, 28, don't let me forget, we cannot have a meeting on November 11th because that's
It's
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day.
So we got to change it to probably the 12th on Tuesday,
Our next meeting is next Monday, right?
the 28th.
Yeah.
And so we have to decide we have to let the public know on the 28th that we cannot have a meeting on the 11th because it's a national holiday.
I just almost volunteered to make these modifications, but I'm not sure.
As everybody's
So, yeah.
looking at the calendar, I'm going to say my other thing is I want every hour of overtime approved by the manager or mayor prior to it happening.
What the book says?
That's what's in the book now.
Well,
What happened before?
it just says, I thought it vaguely said overtime will be limited to let's see.
It says
Overtime paid by 1.5 hours of the employee's regular rate. Overtime shall be paid no later than the first pay period of
approved by
fine.
the mayor or 2 council members.
Right. But I want every hour of it approved because we had a 30 hours of overtime that was put in, and Mike didn't know that it was 30 hours of overtime. He just knew that it was some overtime. And I want it to be known that Mike is accountable for approving every 30 of those hours. So when it comes to us, he knows what he was doing and not, oh, I knew that they were going to put in some overtime, maybe 7 or 8 hours, and it ended up being 30 hours on a project that we have. I mean, we don't even.
And he's not even listed as an approval authority anyway.
No, he's not. It says it's limited to any additional labor deemed an emergency to the city of Eskridge by the mayor or 2 council members.
Right. So that overtime shouldn't even have been paid those 30 hours of overtime because Mike has no authority to give it. And nobody knew that 30 hours was being put in
So should we add
on
the
a project that
supervisor
was not an emergency.
to this list then?
On my copy, it says or supervisor.
What's the date on your
Are
copy?
we down here
We're
on
page-
B1C?
We're on page 5.
B1C?
B16 is what you mean.
No, P16.
B1C.
Huh, we've got 2 different listings in here.
Oh,
Because
good Lord.
IV6,
Yes, it does. There's two different ones, right?
IV6B,
V1 where?
IV6B
B1 is at the bottom.
Oh,
page
just
5.
V1. I'm so sorry.
and B1C.
IV, yes.
The last sentence in
Oh,
B1C
4-6
says or
and
supervisor.
4-1.
So
Or
I know.
supervisor.
But still, nonetheless, add the supervisor, that's fine. But I want them to know every single hour before they approve it.
Okay. I don't disagree. You didn't faint.
verbiage in 4.6B needs to say the same as
Yeah.
attendance
Yeah,
B1.
why
what I
are
did.
they-
Okay, all right.
Also, somewhere there was a seat. Yeah,
And-
down there in IV-8, there's a seat floating down there that needs to be eliminated.
I also think, going back to that overtime, that if you change it, if you add the supervisor to where it says for both of them, then the supervisor must inform the mayor or 2 city councils immediately that overtime is being used.
I like that.
And if we do that, it's got to be documented. I don't care if it's a phone call, a text message, or
Email.
an email, something that can show that, hey, I notified so-and-so on the council and so-and-so on the council because the mayor wasn't available. Or I sent the mayor a text message. That's all I've ever asked for is a text
I like that
message.
staggering schedule that somebody suggested.
It's just thinking outside the box. The employees aren't going to like that.
that might be difficult to sell.
I don't think that
Yeah.
we would have
But on the
let
other
the
hand,
same person.
We don't have to sell it.
on the other
We
hand,
just have to either approve it or deny it. I mean,
Jason,
there's
on
no
the other hand,
selling.
you
We
said
do have to
life's
consider how people
This is
were
true.
hired,
you're hired to do a job that the city needs done.
but I guess we don't
The
take
city's not
anybody
hired.
else into consideration.
All right, you can do what you want.
I move to adjourn.
I will send Kelly a note in the morning about the attendance and who's here. We
Somebody
adjourn.
gonna make these alterations.
I'll work on them. If you guys
Was this meeting
want to work on
recorded?
them as well,
Yeah.
it is.
I'm
Were you
good.
here when we bought
Kelly
it
make
back?
the alterations? From watching the minutes?
She can, or we can.
Stephanie wanted.
I think if we all make our own interpretation and work over
Probably.
interpretations,
I just don't know if it's jumping out of my
I'd see what
memory.
we like the
while I was
best.
there.
Because the floor hasn't been cleaned here in months and months and months.
It is kind of.
My chair is molting and there's black pieces all over the floor. Looks like
Can we
hell.
maybe get new chairs? I'm in favor. Tim and I.
Why don't we do
Now.
that?
I'm in favor.
Hey, I got an idea.
I was in favor
I'm
then.
sure still
I was in
Let's
favor
We
then.
build a new city hall.
That's what I
that's
want.
in Center Street. We get a nice place to sit while we have a nice place to sit.
I'm sorry.
We can
I
only
didn't hear what you
afford the
said.
new
Can you
city
hold on a
hall.
second?
We're gonna
Hey,
have
Jerry.
one.
The problem with the toilet is the float is not floating.
Needs to be adjusted.
It's got, well,
Is it one of the old ball floats?
no, it's
Or the ring?
yeah,
Just
but
Andy-
it
Andy must be
appears
coming back.
that it's taken on water.
That makes sense. So it needs a new float.
Here's something else that needs to be fixed, Richard.